Hi everyone. Welcome to Bangor University's Research Conference of 2023. I'm Ashlein Thomas, and I'm going to be talking about the association of self-silencing behaviors with masculine norms and self-compassion. Let's start by looking briefly into the background of the study, starting with silencing of the self. Now, as the word suggests, the behavior stems from silencing yourself as a way of putting others first and was seen as a way of caring for others. Dana Jack looked into this behavior in 1991. She predominantly observed this behavior in women with depressive symptoms that could have been caused by the suppression of their true selves in order to please men. Later studies, and even recent studies, show that men and women both show these behaviors, but the way both these genders come about to showing these behaviors, or the reasons to why they may need to engage in self-silencing behaviors, were notably distinct, as men and women face different difficulties within the society. Moving on to masculine norms, we see that several studies have shown that men tend to keep their emotions to themselves and hesitate to ask for help. The term masculinity has changed over the years and has also changed throughout cultures, ethnicities, and even social classes. But the traditional sense of masculinity is what is widely accepted as the ideal way for men to be living in Western cultures and also many other cultures. It is difficult, even as the world changes, for men to seek help, and even for others to see men going through an emotionally tough time. Studies have shown that their need to be responsible for others and their families are so ingrained that they tend to forget themselves and their feelings and emotions. They have this sense of wanting to do everything by themselves, refusing to ask for help, and also being defensive when anybody asks them if they need any help. Traditional masculinity rejects the idea of femininity and the need for power. They need self-sufficiency, they're aggressive and dominant, and also may need to control their environment and people around them. While self-compassion, on the other hand, we know is a combination of being humane, kind, and mindful towards yourself. It is allowing yourself to be your true self and being present in the moment and understanding yourself, your needs, and your emotions in that time. Self-compassion is truly essential for an individual to learn how to reach their potentials and unlock more about themselves. Now, these three variables have been looked into separately over years, and through studies, there have been suggestions that self-silencing and masculinity may go hand in hand. While you look into the definitions and understandings of each of these variables, we can see how these three variables do really have some sort of a link within each individual. These variables and other demographic factors, such as genders and ethnicities, can be looked into together in order to understand how these behaviors are manifested in individuals from a wider perspective. Moving on to the hypothesis, it predicts that there is a significant correlation between masculinity and self-compassion. There is a significant relation between self-silencing behaviors and masculinity. The research question is that, is there a relationship between self-silencing behaviors, gender, and ethnicities, which are the other demographic factors which we will be looking into in this study? The participants of the study were students from various universities across the UK. 61 participants completed the questionnaire, from which 41 were females and 20 were males. More than 100 data were collected, but after careful sorting and cleaning of the data, 61 data were eligible to be used for this study. The scales that have been used for this study are the silencing of the self scale, masculine role inventory, and self-compassion scale. Each of these scales have been divided into further subscales. These subscales give us an idea of more detailed measures of how a person must be feeling within these variables. Now, if you look at the silencing of the self scale, it is divided into 4 subscales: externalized self-perception, care as self-sacrifice, silencing the self, and divided self. The masculine role inventory is divided into three subscales, which is the success preoccupation, restrictive emotionality, and inhibited affection, while the self-compassion scale has six subscales, which show self-kindness, self-judgment, common humanity, isolation, mindfulness, and over-identified. So after a correlational test and multiple regression analysis test along with ANOVA were done, these were the results. Now, looking at the demographic details first, we can see that there was a significantly higher number of females than to males in the population that we have, which shows that there are 41 females and 20 males. In the ethnicities graph, we can see that there are 44 participants that were white, 4 participants that were black, 11 Asians, and 2 from multicultural backgrounds. The age range were between the ages of 18 and 45. Most of the participants, which are almost 48 participants, fell between the ages of 18 and 25, 7 participants between the ages of 26 and 30, and 6 participants were above 30 years of age. Moving on to the results that we found for each of the scales, we could see that in the first scale, which is for the self-silencing scale, we can see that the self-silencing is a common behavior among the participants. However, the degree of this behavior varies across the 4 subscales, with the highest subscale in subscale number 2, which is care as self-sacrifice, which shows the tendencies of the participants to put others' needs in front of their own as a form of showing care towards them. The lowest scores are seen in the divided self, which show that the participants do not feel conflicted within themselves to a high extent. The data in MRI, which is the masculine role inventory, suggests that the highest mean score is for subscale 2, which is the success preoccupation subscale, which shows that the participants have a slightly positive view of their masculinity in terms of being assertive and competitive. At the lowest score is the subscale number 1, which is restrictive emotionality subscale, which indicates that the participants have a negative view of their masculinity in terms of being emotionally expressive and vulnerable. Finally, when we look at the self-compassion graph, the data suggests that the highest score is for the mindfulness dimension, which is subscale number 1, indicating that the participants are relatively good at being present and aware of their thoughts and feelings. The lowest score is in the over-identified dimension, or subscale, which is subscale number 6, indicating that the participants tend to be less likely to get caught up in their own negative thoughts and feelings. On correlation of these 3 variables, a positive correlation was found between the variables. And finally, after applying the Wilcox rank test between the masculine role inventory and the self-compassion scale, it indicates that there is a negative correlation between the two that shows that the participants who have more masculine tendencies have lower self-compassion and vice versa. Self-silencing is a phenomenon that arises as a symptom of the roles and expectations that are ascribed to men and women within the context of the gendered landscape of society. It is a product of cultural orthodoxy and has been the potential to affect the quality of interpersonal interactions. In this present study, we observed that the majority of the study participants were females, and this was correlating positively with self-silencing. Most participants from the white ethnicities identified as heterosexuals. This could be owing to societal pressures or religious stresses that prevent them from identifying or exploring, which is a type of self-silencing behavior in itself. The behaviors of toxic masculinity may be traced back to the fundamental cause of a great deal of psychological and physical violence that occur around the world. According to a report published by the American Psychological Society, much of the harmful behaviors that men engage in stems from the insecurity as well as the power and control-seeking behaviors that is taught throughout socialized ideals of masculinity. The unequal valuing of masculinity and femininity results in distinct repercussions for men and women, particularly in relation to their voice. Now, going back to how men and women both have tendencies for self-silencing, but both may have different reasons to engage in these behaviors. And this could be because self-silencing among females is socially imposed due to the fact that their demonstrations of disorders will frequently have a detrimental impact on many aspects of their lives, especially in earlier times, which may have been a behavior that was just passed on generations after generations. While in men, they are socialized to feel guilty about expressing their emotions. So, therefore, there's a correlation between sticking to these gendered behaviors and a greater likelihood of depression and substance misuse. So, finally, the purpose of the study was to understand self-silencing, self-compassion, and masculinity behaviors among these university students in an attempt to provide support measures to manage the physical and mental consequences of the same. In conclusion, the study has significant findings which may help in larger studies that may want to look into each of these aspects in detail. A larger sample size could be taken and more ethnicities can be involved in order to have a bigger and wider picture. It has given us an understanding and a different perspective on how cultural differences can lead to various behaviors, including such as self-silencing and lower self-compassion among people. It also paves the way in understanding men's mental health and bringing about awareness to it and how tiny nuances in cultures or the way different genders are treated can have various effects on people and society as a whole.